truly, if you're someone in your early 20s and you feel lost, these are the books I recommend. That's like the target audience for me. People that feel lost in like a really weird world. These are the 3 books that I bring to you.
Welcome to Shoulda Books, the podcast about all the books you should have read by now. My name is Jonathan, and today I am joined by Sam Bakas. Sam is an editor and video creator. He was on this podcast back in January for our book club episode that month, which was The House of the Spirits by Isabel Allende. We had a great time talking about that book, and we had a great time talking about the 3 books that he thinks everyone should read. And we're going to get to that in just a second. But first, you know it, you love it. We got to do some housekeeping. The book club, the Shoulda Book Club for this month, we're reading Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. It's I'm really enjoying it so far. It's kind of mysterious. It feels like I really can't talk about it without like giving anything away. So if you are reading it and you want to talk about it, head on over to the Shoulda Book Club on Fable. We can chat about it as we're going. If you want to talk about that, if you want to talk about other interesting topics, book related or non-book related, you can do that in the Discord. And if you want to join the Discord, it comes with membership in the Patreon, which either membership, either tier includes access to the Shoulda Books Discord. So if you want ad-free extended episodes, if you want the monthly bonus show called Shoulda Films, which is where we watch a movie that's based on a book, you can find that all over on the Shoulda Books Patreon. If you want to grab a copy of any of the books that we talk about today, including, the book club episode for this month, Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro, you can find all those in the description. I have some affiliate links for bookshop.org. Bookshop.org lets you buy books from local bookstores. You help out local bookstores, you help out me because I get a tiny commission, and everybody wins. So all of the books we talk about today are going to be in the description. I think that is it. So without any further ado, enjoy my second conversation with the one, the only Sam Bakas. Let's hit the books. Sam Bakas, welcome back to, it's a different studio because it's your home and my temporary home. But we're here. And instead of talking about The House of the Spirits, which is what we talked about last time, and we had a great time, at least I'll speak for myself. I had a great time talking about that book with you.
I loved it. Best day of my life. It hasn't gotten better since.
Okay, that's sad. I'm really sorry to hear that. Yeah. But I am a little flattered. Welcome back to Shoulda Books. Today, you are sharing the 3 books that you think everyone should read. In the Patreon cold open, you shared a little bit about your own writing, which I didn't know about. So that was exciting to hear about. Some short story writing. You're doing some contests. So if you want to hear about that, check out the Shoulda Books Patreon. You can get ad-free extended episodes of all the episodes, plus a whole lot more. I'll stop selling and get to the episode. Sam, we talked about this, I think, a little bit in the House of the Spirits episode, but what kind of reader are you? What sort of things do you like to read? When do you read? How do you read? Et cetera, et cetera.
I think like most people, I read in waves. I do consider myself a big reader, but it's just, especially lately, I've been very, very busy. So I haven't been able to like fully finish a book. But last week, I was actually visiting my parents in Dallas for Passover. And for the first time, like every morning, because I work, I don't know, I'm like a very strict schedule kind of guy. I wake up every day at 7:30 and usually start working at 9. So I was waking up at 7:30, but then I was working remotely, so I had an hour to kill. And I was just like, grab my book. Right now I'm reading The Wheel of Time, a fantasy book.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, every morning I was just like going outside, reading for an hour. And you know what? Genuinely, what I was like, my dog, my parents' dog, which is actually my dog. My parents are just taking care of her for now.
Of course.
But I was just reading out my dogs, just reading or like playing next to me, and I was reading like with coffee every morning. And genuinely, I was thinking like, this is what life is all about, you know. And it was a nice reminder because it's like truly like just having a good book, being able to like read it outside in peace, like with a coffee around people you love. I truly I used it as a reminder of like what life is all about, like. And you get this, especially in LA, where everyone acts as if like there's nothing more important than success and fame and whatever. It's like sure, it's nice to pursue things, but like to me, what genuinely is lovely and worth it, and the meaning of life is just reading a book with my dog playing around and drinking coffee.
First of all, anytime you get to read outdoors is a win.
Oh, it's
like, I have been reading a lot of stuff for the podcast, like books that are coming out. And so because I've been traveling, I've been having those like authors send me PDFs. And so, which is great. I mean, like I've read some great stuff, so stay tuned to the podcast. There's some great episodes with some authors coming up, but reading on my phone, like it kind of hurts my soul a little bit. It's like, okay, this is what I had to do to get it done and meet the deadline. But being able to like sit outside with a book, especially with a dog nearby, like, oh my God. Tell us about the dog. People are in their cars. They're screaming. They're like, tell us about the dog. Who's the dog?
I'll send you a photo so you can put it in the video. Her name is Cora. She is my best. It's like, so here in LA, I have 2 cats. One of them is new actually, and should be around somewhere. And I love them because they're my cats and I have to love them. It's like, but I don't like cats. So I do love them, but it's truly because I have to. My dog, Cora, I love her because she's my best friend. Like, I don't love her because I have to love her. I love her because I get to love her. Aww. None of my cats though; they suck. But Cora, I love it.
You were doing so well. The audience was so with you. Now they all hate you. So
I'm just being my true, authentic self. And for the record, I do love them. I do love them with all my heart.
Okay, there's just a big asterisk. And what's love if not a place for asterisks? So
yeah, it's unconditional, and but I don't like it. Okay. But my dog Cora, she's the best ever. She's a German Shepherd and has no boundaries.
Yeah, and that's very un-German, actually.
She sleeps whenever I'm in Dallas. She sleeps with me on my bed, and at 3 a.m. every morning, she'll just remember that I'm there and wake up all excited and start licking my face because she's like, "Oh my God!" It's like and you know what? Every time it's like at first I hate it, but then it's like, you know what? It's okay.
Like you said, moments like that are what it's all about, and I want more moments like that in my life.
And funnily enough, actually, not to segue into it, but like the 3 books that I chose.
Hell yeah, let's go.
Like I chose them not necessarily because they're my favorite books. They could be. I don't know. Like the idea of favorite book is so complicated, but I chose them because I read them all. And I talked about this briefly in the last episode. Mm-hmm. But I had when I first moved out to LA and started living my independent life and pursuing a dream and all that stuff, I had I started questioning everything, right? Like I grew up Jewish, but mostly atheist, and I truly always didn't feel the need to I didn't think meaning mattered. I didn't feel I always said who cares about the meaning of life? It's just life. Yeah. And I just lived my life with disregard to everything. But then when I became an adult and started seeing the truth of the world a little, the bubble of privilege and comfort burst. Yeah. And I felt very lost for a while. And I wouldn't say that I've completely found my way. I don't think you ever do, right? Yeah. But I was feeling very lost. And I started searching for answers in books. That's the era of my life that I've read the most, where I truly, and it's all kinds of books. I read books that were heavily anti-religion, like The Ends of Faith. I read books that were very deeply pro-religion, like A Stranger in a Lifeboat, and and things that had nothing to do with religion. I read philosophy, books about psychedelics. I read the novels, nonfiction, everything, right? Just trying to grasp at some strings of meaning, right? Again, I don't know if I found an answer, but the 3 books that I brought today are the 3 books that have helped me find, I don't know if meaning, but a path forward. They've taught me what I think my view of the world is now and how to navigate through it. A little bit more of understanding of the world we live in and why people are the way they are. And yeah, that's truly, if you're someone in your early 20s and you feel lost, these are the books I recommend. That's the target audience for me. People that feel lost in a really weird world. These are the 3 books that I bring to you.
Well, Sam, literally every word you were saying is lighting up the sensors in my mind of these are the kind of conversations I love having. I love books about these sort of things. I can't wait to get into it. So what is the first book that you think everyone should read?
Okay, let me, okay, I'll do in Oh, which one should be? Let's start with in order of the books I read, and this is a book that we talked a little bit about last time. I had four, I had five. I really had to like trim down to three. So, but okay, the number one, Kite Runner.
Yes. Okay, cool. So the Kite Runner, for those following along at home, is going to be next month's Shoulda Book. We are reading this for the book club next month. So I will go ahead and just say, if there's any spoilers here and you're going to read the book next month, you have been warned. I don't know if Sam is going to give spoilers, but
I'll try to avoid them. Okay. Also, because, and to quote the great Ash Paris from the episode he was in a few episodes ago.
Yes.
I was listening to that, and it's something very true that Ash says, where it's like, I remember very vividly what these books left me, and the lessons and everything. I struggle to remember specifics about the books. Like I remember some things, and I read a few summary before.
Look, I've been there.
Yeah, but I remember the important things, and I remember why they matter to me. But I don't think we should worry that much about spoilers. If we do, I'll mention it beforehand. But
yeah, I really liked what Ash said about that, which is, if you haven't watched or listened to that episode, is basically just talking about like, the way the book leaves you and the way you feel about the book is the thing that is the most important. I think it's true of people too. It's like there's a quote someone said of like, people do not remember what you said. People don't remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel. So how did this book make you feel?
Same exact thing. Same exact thing. Yeah. Kite Runner. It's funny how I started reading it, because it's truly also like the first book I ever read, which I think also like showed me the kind of books I enjoy reading. Before that, I read, because I'm a big nerd, so I would read like fantasy and like, like nerdy things. Fantasy, Ready Player One, which are great books.
Oh,
and Harry Potter.
I do like that book, actually.
Books are really fun, and I genuinely love them. But that's the first book that I didn't just love, but I also felt impacted me. And then I started reading more books like it. And I literally read it. I was one day in my grandma's house. I saw it. Like she had a bookshelf with hundreds of books. I've never grabbed one of my grandma's books, because they had always been adult boring books. Why would why am I gonna grab one? But that one, I truly cannot. It just something about it called me, and I grabbed it and I started reading it, and wow, basically the synopsis for the people that don't know, the story is basically the story about mostly two kids in Afghanistan. I think it's in the 60s? I'm not sure. It's that you see these two kids are from different. Have you read it, Jonathan?
I have not. No. I'm going to next month though, so I'm going to read it next month. Yeah. Okay.
No spoilers, no worries. Now that I know that you haven't read it, I'll avoid spoilers even more. But it's the two kids are also from like distinct social classes. The protagonist is like from the well-off family, and the other kid is the kid of the kid's gardener. But they're really good friends. But they're from different social classes. I also grew up. Genuinely, I grew up in I was born in the year 2000, so all my life was very post 9/11, and that that idea of what the Middle East was truly, and that book it sounds kind of messed up. I'm just being very vulnerable and honest, and this is just that book really opened my eyes to the fact that I heard the word Afghanistan, and really awful thoughts would be associated with it, right? And then I read this book, and I remember reading it this is gonna. I remember again. I read this when I was very young and whatever. I remember seeing that they talk about ice cream and ice cream carts, and they're just buying ice cream, and I remember reading that. I don't remember if that's in this book or the other book, A Thousand Splendid Suns, which is also a book by the author. But it's really that's that book, the way it depicted Afghanistan and people there, and truly just regular people with problems and stories. It just really broke down the walls of stereotypes and a lot of things that were in my mind, the world is way bigger than I thought it was, more complicated. And it also specifically Muslim religion aside, it also just showed me the meaning of religion. Again, I was very deeply and even proudly an atheist, right? And this book, I read it and I finished reading it, and I was like, okay, I get I get why religion is so important and why it brings so much meaning to many people, because it's also a deeply religious book. It's not a book about religion in any way. Like, it's truly not a book about religion, but it's a book that deals with people that are part of a religion and their relationship with it. And it's a really powerful book, truly. And and that's what people should read, because reading this book truly changed the way I saw the world. And this book inspired me to read others and more, and started trying to broadening my mind. And I think often how nowadays with freaking algorithms and TikToks and whatever, you're start going in a deep, books, there's no algorithm to books. You grab whichever interests you and they don't guide you. Algorithms nowadays really heavily push you in one direction or another, and they show you one side of things, they're not real. But books, they don't try to get you like that. They truly are here to show you things and thoughts that you've never thought of.
Yeah.
This book very much did that for me. It was the first one. It truly was the inception of this new way of reading books and learning information for me.
I think books are just incredible at transporting you somewhere that you have no frame of reference for, or you have a flawed frame of reference for, and just kind of showing you the humanity. I know that this book is kind of famous for being brutal. Was that kind of your experience with it?
Very much so. And I do think when you read it for the Shoulda Book Club, definitely a disclaimer comes in hand. There's some truly graphic moments in the book. They're important to the story, definitely so, because it's again, this book doesn't shy away from the fucked up. It also doesn't shy away from the beautiful, which I think is, but yeah, definitely some very graphic. There's one specifically. It's not a book with a bunch of different fucked up moments. It's a great book, though. What's great about reading, especially in a world of languages, languages is also something I think a lot about, because I live a life now where I speak my second language all the time.
Right.
And I think about how, and this is something that also, do you know Trevor Noah?
Not personally, but yeah.
Well, no, I'll introduce you guys. Don't worry.
Yeah. We'll play pickleball.
No, Trevor Noah also in his autobiography, which I also highly recommend, he talks a lot about this, how language is the way you can either divide or unite people. More than how you look or anything, being able to talk like someone else, being able to sound like someone else is the best way to have them trust you. But the other side of the coin is the opposite. Sounding different than other people is a good way to alienate them. I see that a lot nowadays with how we're treating Latinos in this country, which we don't have to get into it, but we know it's not great right now. And I think it has to do because it's crazy because I feel like a lot of people that don't speak Spanish, they see Mexicans or anyone from Latin America, right? And it's really easy to see them as others. One of my biggest pet peeves is when people that don't speak Spanish talk to people that speak very little English. And they talk down, it's like, hello, how are you today?
The American tendency to speak broken English in an accent,
Yeah, oh my God. I was watching a TV show, Survivor. I was watching an early season of Survivor. And it's they think because their English is so broken, they immediately assume that they're not smart, which is homie, they speak fluently one whole language and can communicate with you. They
are doing better than you are because they're actually communicating. I'm recording this episode in Rome, and I've been learning Italian on and off for some time, and I can basically order. What's that?
Give me something in Italian.
Oggi è domenica pomeriggio. Sono Jonathan. Come si chiama?
Sam.
Sì. Piacere. So anyway, I can make myself understood enough in a situation like a dinner or a taxi or something like that. But I'm sure I sound dumb. I'm sure I do not sound intelligent at all.
You're putting in the effort, which is more than a lot of people do. So.
Oh my God. I was at a cafe earlier today, my girlfriend and my girlfriend speaks, she doesn't say she's fluent, but I think she's fluent in Italian. And anyway, we were at a table and there was a couple, a table next to us, didn't even try, just immediately started speaking to the waiter in English. And the guy I think he ordered a macchiato, and then like flagged the waiter back down and was like, so is that like a latte, or is that like, like a little one? And the guy was like, latte? Like, he's basically just saying like, so is that like, what it means is like, oh, is that a milk?
Yeah,
Like,
I think is that a milk?
Hey, that coffee I just ordered, is that a milk, or is that not a,
It's one of those things where I don't think what that couple was doing was inherently wrong. Like 2 years ago, I went to Norway and I didn't learn Norwegian. I tried and it's too hard. It's too hard of a life. So I think what's bad is when like you think like you get annoyed with the other person, like you act like the other person's the problem.
Yes.
But wait, anyways, going back to the whole language thing, because there's a reason I brought it up, is I think reading is the best way to like connect bridges and cultures, because you are truly like in the best way possible, because language is never a one-to-one translation, but like when you're reading a translated book, and that's why I've been trying to read so many like international books. When you're reading a book that was written in Korea, in Japan, in Mexico, in Chile, whatever, you're truly like diving into the mind of someone that was there, or like someone that speaks that language and that culture. And that's why I always want people to read Isabel Allende, because she, like the way she depicts Latin America is just so wonderful. And that's also honestly true to movies with subtitles. Like the movie Roma by, was it Cuarón?
Cuarón, yeah.
That movie is, I love it so much. It's so wonderful because I feel like it's a good way for like people here in the US, my friends and people here in the US, to like glimpse at kind of what my life was in Mexico, right? It's of course, again, not exactly the same, but it's such a nice, that's why art also is so wonderful. It's a window into other people's minds and perspectives. And I think books, oh my God, and for me, Kite Runner was truly like, it humanized the world. And I feel that's something wonderful about books. They humanize us. It allows you to like get into other people's perspectives and minds and understand them more. And that's what Kite Runner, when I tell you, that's the first one. That's why it's also the first one on my list. That is the one that incepted me into like this world of reading things beyond Harry Potter, beyond Ready Player One. Which again, love those books. Nothing wrong with those books.
Yeah.
But the fucking explosion of like culture and mindsets and like, holy shit, everyone in the world writes and we can read things written by anyone, is just, it changes you. It really does,
Very well said. Very well said. And I would love to linger on the Kite Runner, but we got to get to the next one. What's the next book you think everyone should read?
This is, of my 3 books, this is by far the one I remember the least in detail. Okay. But I do very much remember how it made me feel and like the lessons it taught me. Ishmael.
I don't know this book.
Oh, it's a philosophy book. It's a novel, but it's deeply philosophical.
Who's the author?
Daniel Quinn.
Daniel Quinn, okay.
It's this guy, I believe in New York, who finds a newspaper article saying that there's a teacher looking for a student, and the teacher is going to teach the student how to save the world. And the narrator, which I don't think has a name, is like, fuck yeah, sign me up. And he goes to the teacher, he enters like an empty office building, and in the office building, there's a gorilla. Behind a glass pane, there's a gorilla. It turns out the gorilla is a teacher. The gorilla can communicate telepathically with the guy. This is the only fantasy aspect of the book. Everything else is very deeply real world. And it's just basically the gorilla starts telling the narrator the story of his life. How he was, I don't even remember in detail, but basically I think he was in a circus or something. I don't know. And then he met a guy that taught him how to communicate telepathically, and and the gorilla itself started reading and learning about the world. And it's basically the whole book is the gorilla teaching the narrator all the lessons that he's learned. I feel like the main lesson, at least that I understood from it, is that humans, we think ourselves as gods, One of the main premises of the book is dividing people between takers and givers, right? Takers are this like Americanized society of like just more and more and more, that you're Jeff Bezos, you're Elon Musk. Honestly, a lot of people here, it's just this like necessity of more and more and more and more, which I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a part of. I'd be fooling myself. I feel like a lot of people in the culture we live in are, of like truly seeking more and more and more and more. This book is the first thing that opened my eyes. And there's levers. It's takers and levers. Yeah? And levers are people that like, they don't need more and more and more. They're good with what they have or what they need. They see a difference between what you want and what you need. And what you need is the only thing that and it tells you how like humans, we think we're gods. We think we are, because we're a deeply smart creature, sure, but we do not know the answers to the universe as much as we want to pretend we do. We see ourselves as different than animals, A lot of people, and I've had this conversation with many people, a lot of people think humans are here and animals are here. And I always ask them, why? Is it because we're smarter? Is it because we're smarter? Does that mean that a baby has less value? Like, it's like, it's this mentality of like, dude, we're just animals, and it basically... It changed the world. It changed the way I see the world, because it made me realize that as much as I want to feel like I'm a god and I'm in control of everything that happens in my life, I'm very much not, nor will I ever be. Right? It's this idea of control and like wanting to like choose your own destiny perfectly rather than like learn to live in it. Yeah. Does that make sense?
100%. 100%. Yeah. The illusion of control is, I think, something that's very seductive to all of us to some extent or another. But it is just that. It is an illusion. We can't actually control anything. And the harder we try to, the more that horizon kind of recedes before us. Like you can spend your whole life trying to control everything and you will be miserable.
Often what I think about it, and one of the biggest lessons that I took away from this book is, right now the world is kind of falling apart. Let's talk purely from like an environmental perspective, though. Let's not talk about political stuff. Let's just take an environmental perspective. The carbon emissions, whatever, destroying I'm not an environmentalist, so I can't give you the details, but I know it's fucked up.
It's bad.
And we keep looking for solutions as to like how to cut our emissions or how to like create clean energy, whatever. And I find it so funny because, hey, as a species, we totally know what the solution is. The solution is super easy. It's to take a step back, stop creating carbon emissions, stop using cars. It's like, but no one's gonna do that. Like the price of saving our planet is too high, because it would involve like because it would come at the, what's the word?
At the expense of,
I think at the expense of
the lifestyle,
progress, of this idea, that progress, the one thing that us humans do, this obsession we have with like, because again, on the flip side of that, progress has great things: medicine, food, shelter, like that. A lot of it right now, we live in an era where like food is the cheapest that it's ever been. Child mortality is at an all-time low. It's still a problem, but it's lower than it's been, and that is thanks to progress. But also, progress is killing our environment, is killing so many animals. It's this illusion that like us humans, we think we'll be able to solve every problem. We can cure world hunger. We can end disease. We can stop global warming if we just keep doing progress, if we keep doing things. And I feel like the thesis of this book is like, that is a great fairy tale. That's a wonderful idea that we tell ourselves. And hey, fuck it, maybe it's true. What do I know? But like, history has shown that we don't have all the answers. That like, probably if we keep this story of like progress being the answer, then we're never going to find a solution.
This book, does it give any sort of practical guidelines or practices or like ways? Because like I agree that like the desire for more is the thing that is both literally and figuratively destroying us.
Yes, very much so.
How do we grapple with that with ourselves, and how do we get to a place where we want less? Does this book kind of speak to that?
It kind of does, yes. At the end, it does give you a solution. I don't remember what it is because I remember disagreeing with it.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, one of the problems with this book is that it very much showed me a problem with both myself and the world. Yeah. And it tried to give me an answer, but I remember the answer didn't satisfy me. Which, that honestly, with a lot of the books I've read, that happens where like I'm looking for answers and it only breeds questions.
That's really interesting. I think that's fascinating, that and in a way commendable. I think that like the prompt of this podcast obviously is bringing 3 books you think everyone should read. Mm-hmm. And you brought a book that ultimately you don't agree with.
I don't agree with, like, it puts a problem and I disagree with the solution. But it's like, because it tries to, like most things, it tries to give a solution for the world, like a universal solution. And I feel like this book didn't do that for me. It gave me more of like a guideline on how to live my life. It less than giving me an answer, it just helped me find where my morals and values lie. And I read it early on in my LA life, and again, LA life is very much the grind, the pursuit, the networking, the blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And one of the main lessons I feel I got from this book is it's what we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast, just like, I don't know if that was a Patreon exclusive or not, but the being outside reading a book.
Sign up to find out, folks.
Sign up to find out. Just being outside and reading a book and how that is the peak of life. It's like, for me, this book is the reminder of that. Like, right now I'm still pursuing career growth and blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. But I think this book made me realize that it should never come at the expense of like my morals and my values and being a good person, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel that's something that a lot of people here forget. It's like, I do want is the key word. I do want to tell better stories, to like be in more things, to direct a movie, write a book, be successful, be well known. Yeah, I do want all those things, but I don't need them. Yeah. What I need is to feel feel community, to be sheltered, and to be fed. So as long as I have those 3 things, love, shelter, and food, then there's no reason to cross any boundaries. There's no reasons why I need to be an asshole. Why, like, people first. That's my motto. I will never do anything for any career opportunity or whatever that comes before people, because that's not the point of life. The point of life is to have a good book, be with your dog, and and be fine. And that's all you need. And that's what this book helped me find out, that like, no matter how much I want to be successful or how much I want to achieve the next thing in my career, it should never come before being a decent person,
What does that term mean to you? Being a decent person or a good person? What does that look like?
If I'm being honest, that's a concept that keeps changing the older I get. At this point it really does. And I know it'll keep changing. So maybe I'll rewatch this podcast in 10 years and be like, Sam, you're fucking... but right now is to be aware of the impact you have on the world and on others, specifically within your community. I think right now, thanks to social media, we're like very aware of the impact we have in like the broader world, but we forget about the impact of like the people immediately around us, our coworkers, our family, our neighbors. I think we should prioritize that. I think like if as people we prioritized the community, the impact of the people around us rather than with the world, I think the world as a whole would be a better place if we all did that. And also, one of the biggest things that I think I've learned the older I get is to learn from your mistakes and forgive yourself. I feel like nowadays we live in a society that's very like punishing. And again, it has good and bad things. Like we keep people accountable for what they do, but also I think we're not a very forgiving society. I do think there is space for forgiveness, both for the world and for yourself. But you need to be willing to learn. I don't think forgiveness should come as a guarantee, or it shouldn't be taken for granted. I think it's like you need, like, my morals come from like not expecting me to be perfect, but by trying to be good, to like know that I'm gonna make mistakes because I am very deeply human and very deeply flawed. But when someone calls me out on my mistakes, don't be prideful and like be like, no, I never make mistakes. Or if someone calls you out on a mistake, listen to that person and be like, and if they're right, try to change, try to like, listen to them and like, try to make a difference, like the only way to be better is by trying to be better. If you assume you're already perfect and you are flawless, you're never going to grow in any way. But if you're willing to listen and improve that, like, and forgive yourself and like forgive the people around you, I don't know. I feel that that's the way forward.
I hope you don't feel like I'm grilling you here. I'm just genuinely curious, but
I love it.
Is there a mistake that you've learned from that you feel comfortable sharing?
I can be kind of arrogant sometimes. I think that's the word, like kind of full of myself. I sometimes think I bring all the answers, and and I remember especially at my last job, at an advertising agency, I thought I was pretty good at my job, and I think I was pretty decent at my job, but I had this notion that I was the only person that could be good at my job, if that makes sense. Like I was like, oh,
sure.
And one of my peers got a promotion before I did. A peer that got hired after I did, and I was pissed. I very internally, and I try to play it off cool, like ha 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 ha.
Congratulations! I'm so happy. Yeah.
And this peer, for the record, is a really good friend of mine, and I remember months later he did call me out. He was like, "Hey, like when I got promoted, like you didn't even seem happy for me. You were like just so concerned with like how this affected you.
Yeah.
In a big moment for me that I feel like I couldn't even celebrate it with you. I felt bad, and he called me out on it, and like it was one of those moments like, oh, like you're totally right. I care so much about like my career growth and like what I was doing, blah 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 blah, that I wasn't there to celebrate this exciting moment for my friend. And it's moments like that. That moment also it's like those realizations are like you can be wrong and you will be wrong. And it's like, yeah, you should feel bad when you're wrong. And because I did feel bad. I felt like, holy shit, I fucked up. I made something about myself and I made my friend feel worse in a moment where I should be happy for him. And I apologized. And for the record, we're perfectly okay now, but it's like, yeah, I just knowing that, like, had I been prideful and be like, no, what do you mean? I need to take care about my career. And I was, I could have tried to defending myself or whatever, but I would have been wrong. And it's like, you either humble yourself to the idea of being wrong and growing from it, or you just stay arrogant and never grow and just stay who you are forever.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, because I think that's an extremely human reaction to have that. To have that feeling of like, no, I was here first. I deserve this. I do think that I'm sure it sucked in the moment, but it was cool that your friend called you out, and that that clearly that speaks to the relationship that you guys have, that like having that comfort of like feeling like, okay, I can call this person out on something and we'll still be friends. Like, I think that is something, that is rare.
I think it comes very heavily from this modern idea of friendships being like expendable. Especially like, because before we used to live in tribes. So if you were an asshole or whatever, you'd still be around them. But nowadays in like big cities like Los Angeles, if I offend a friend, they can just choose to never see me again. So you are like, people tend to be a lot more careful with what they say, and like they never want to make their friends feel bad or uncomfortable or anything, because they're scared that any negative notion associated with them will end the friendship. That's why like my friendship with this guy, truly, like he genuinely is a brother to me, and he called me out because he knows that even if we argue or whatever, we're still gonna stay friends, because there's just once you enter that level of friendship with someone, which I truly hope everyone in this world achieves that level of friendship with people, like I can hate you and we're still like, I can truly like hate you for a moment and be so mad at you, but knowing that we're still gonna be there for each other. That's the best level of friendship, if you ask me. That's true friendship,
Absolutely. And yeah, I think that what you said about the disposable nature of friendships now, I think is so spot on. I think that like, yeah, there is kind of this, again, yet another illusion that I think is very seductive, which is that you can always make more friends. You can always make new friends, and you can always like if your friend group is not the platonic ideal of a sitcom friend group where you're always hanging out and getting into shenanigans together, then like you need to level up and find new people.
Yeah.
And it's an impoverished way to live. I think the same is true for romantic relationships, especially the feeling of like, oh, I can just get on Hinge and find another match. And so the second that, things aren't 100% to my liking, I'm out.
It's the classic. Like I feel like because as a single person, you wouldn't get this. You couldn't get as a
There
single
was a
person.
time
Like,
in my life when I was single, and that was certainly
yeah.
yes,
I feel like everyone, and this is something that I'm trying to like overcome and deal with, but everyone has like this, like, oh, my perfect person is this. Like they have a straight up like list in their minds of like what they're looking for, and they're waiting for someone to fit that criteria, yeah, and be like, oh, there you go, I found that person for me. Which like, tell me if you disagree as someone in a relationship.
Sure.
A relationship is less about finding like a right person that fits your puzzle piece and more about like building a relationship with someone, you know? And
Absolutely.
it's like something you build, not just something that happens.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like all of the cliches about relationships are true. Like no one is perfect and you are not perfect. And like you are not going to measure up to someone else's like checklist, just like no one else is going to 100% measure up to your checklist. And that's good. That's like, it's, if you are dating someone who is measuring up to every single little thing, like you're dating an AI.
Yeah.
Because you are just dating someone who is mirroring what you are looking for, you know? And like, that's not a real relationship. And so I think that happens a lot where people kind of read the other person and are like, oh, I think this person wants these 5 bullet points. So I'm going to pretend to be these 5 bullet points. And you can for a while, but not like once any sort of strain gets put on it, once any sort of real life shit starts happening, like that stuff's out of there.
Pretending to be, that's like, you hit it on the neck. It's like, I remember like, I would see, especially in high school, my friends in relationship and see how in relationships and see what their relationships look like and be like, oh, that's what it's like, that's the person I need to be. So I would like act more like them, thinking that that's the way a relationship should be. And I remember always like feeling anxious and like, I would like, whenever I was with someone I was dating, I would never feel like the relaxed comfort I was supposed to feel, you know, I would just feel like, oh, am I playing up the part correctly, you know? And I feel like now when I'm looking for a relationship, truly what I want is someone I can fart with. I just want to fart away. That's all I want in life, you know?
Right. Yeah. No, and it's tough to do. It's tough to be vulnerable, but that's what you got to do. You know, at the start. And I mean, you've been incredibly generously vulnerable on this podcast already. So
hey, but this is for views. This is for views.
This is for views, exactly.
Anything for views. I would sell my soul, Jonathan.
Yeah. So, what did the gorilla have to say about that?
What did
the gorilla have to say about
The gorilla says that you should get early on TikTok, post 3 times a day. You know. Oh God, I want to throw up.
Are there any other lessons from Ishmael?
Let me tell you a quick Ishmael story. One time, I was in Miami. I had just finished the book. I was in Miami with my friends. I speak Spanish, for the record, for the listeners. I'm from Mexico. I speak Spanish. Everyone in Miami speaks Spanish, and we meet this group of people who also speak Spanish. And they ask us, "Where are you from?" And my friend goes like, "Oh, I'm blah 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 from Mexico." And my other friend goes, "Oh, I'm blah blah from Mexico." And I go, "I'm Ishmael from Italia." True story. And then they were like, "Hey, can you say something in Italian?" And I learned that I'm really good at faking Italian. So maybe I'm such an asshole for this.
Can we hear some?
Okay. Oh my God. This is the portion where I get canceled. To the nation of Italy, I'm sorry, but check this out. This is my fake Italian. Okay, are you ready?
Okay.
And you're in Italy right now, so you can genuinely.
Yeah.
Okay. El elefante está demorado.
I gotta say, dude, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's kind of like Spanish, to be fair.
Yeah, it's Spanish with a different accent.
Dude, this story, everyone's going to think I'm an asshole after this story. And you know what? I kind of am, so it's okay.
But you're being vulnerable, you know, for views.
Exactly, you know. People need to know who I really am. And basically, we made a bet with these people that they would say something in Spanish. And if I guessed it, they would buy me a drink. And then I would say something in Italian. And if they guessed it, I would buy them a drink. That's also, it was the last night of our trip and we had ran out of money and we're like, okay, how can we get drinks? And Jonathan, it worked really well.
Well, what's amazing is you chose a name that's like not Italian.
That's why it worked. It's so crazy that it has, you know. And
certainly, someone wouldn't pretend to be an Italian by choosing a name that's not. Yeah.
You get it, Jonathan. And it worked. Ishmael from Italy. And then the next morning, they texted me like, "Hey, Ishmael, we had so much fun." And I was like, because I truly, the whole night, I was Ishmael from Italia. And at that point, honestly, if those people are watching this video, I'm sorry, because I never replied to them. I never came clean. They still, to this day, they think they met Ishmael from Italia. And this is the first time I'm telling this story publicly. So
wow, you heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I will. I'll try to spread the word here, and make sure.
They need to know.
Yeah.
They need to know it was all ruse.
Oh my God. Yeah. We'll talk about, illusions that are seductive, fake talent.
Yeah.
All right, Sam, we got to get to, we got to get to your last book. What is the third and final book that you think everyone should read?
This book is truly the book for me. The one that like truly
that's for last.
Yeah. It's, I don't know if you've heard of it. It's When Breath Becomes Air.
Yes, I have heard of this. I might be, because you brought it up in the House of the Spirits episode. I think you might have mentioned it, or maybe you've just talked about it in just our regular conversations. Anyway, tell me more about it.
Just listen to the title. When Breath Becomes Air.
Breath Becomes Air. Who's the author?
Paul Kalanithi.
I'm
not sure that name. It's his one and only book, because the author Paul.
Yeah.
He's not a writer. He was never a writer. He was a neurosurgeon, I believe. A neurosurgeon. He was extremely successful in his career, except when he turned 20, like late 20s, early 30s, he got diagnosed with cancer. I don't remember specifically which one, and was basically told he had 2 years left to live. It's true. It's all true. It really happened. And Paul was like, okay, I'm going to write a book. I want to write a book about what I've learned in my life, and about death, and about art, and about meaning. And he wrote it, and died. That's not a spoiler. That is just truly the premise of the book. And it's about his philosophy. And it's a story about him facing this. He worked his whole life to achieve something, and then it was cut short. And it's crazy because it's a really heavy book, it deals with a really heavy subject matter. But when you're reading it, you don't. Clearly, Paul wasn't writing this book in an attempt to for people to feel bad for him or anything. He was truly just talking about his life and what he's learned. And the main thing he talks about is this balance. He was always a scientist, but also an artist. He was always a man of academia, a doctor, but also had this love for writing and for the arts. And there's many little things about this book that really hit hard, but it's one of the ones I think about often. And it's, for me, why. Let me backtrack a little bit. So one of the things I really struggled with, especially when becoming an adult, is finding meaning without believing in God or a higher power. How do you grasp into a sense of meaning without that? And that is honestly if I had to summarize my struggles back then in just a single sentence, is that how do you find meaning in a world with no God? And I feel like this book is one of the things that would truly help me find it, because there's this one moment in a book where he talks about how he was a doctor that had to deal a lot with people dying, and telling the families of the people dying that their loved one was about to die and all those things, and how often doctors would. Further, I'm not a doctor. I'm just speaking of what I read in the book, of course. Let the record show.
If anyone was confused, yeah.
If anyone was like, "Is this guy a doctor?" No, I'm not.
Is Ishmael from Italia a doctor, though? Yeah.
No, I'm not. He talks about how often doctors would treat those moments as very clinical, very hey, you have to share the news, which you understandable. You want to detach yourself from that situation, sure. But Paul talks about the importance of that a doctor isn't just someone that diagnoses and he's not just a numbers. A part of the responsibility of a doctor is very much also to treat people, to talk to people, to help them, guide them through hard situations. And even again, to me, that reflects the coldness of like reality. Like the real objective world we live in is very cold, very analytical, very matter of factly. You hold an apple, you open your hand, it'll fall. Like it's very measurable. Everything's very cut, cold, and clean. And I think our jobs as artists, honestly, or at least not even me as an artist, just what artists that are not me, artists in the outside, what they do for me is they are like the doctors leading me through life, guiding me through life, guiding me through the process of being human and like just being alive and growing older and living through tragedy, because art, like truly books, movies, fucking video games, like art truly is what me, Sam, as a person, that is my faith. That is my belief system. That is my meaning, it's the world feels so cold without art. What people truly, like genuinely, I always say that AMC is my church. Because I am AMC subs, 4 movies a week for free, big fan. But it's like when I go to the movies and I'm watching a great movie and I'm just sitting there in the dark room with a bunch of people witnessing this, me, and everyone in the movie theater feeling the same thing, that I feel what people describe they feel in church. That like meaning, that like beautiful, or reading a beautiful book, or sitting outside in my parents' backyard reading a book. That like the stories is what connects me with a broader world. Because to me, if maybe God isn't real, I don't know. I'm not gonna make any big statements. But if God isn't real, I know that the love I feel for my family is real, and the love all the people are in the world, all the people in the world feel, that love is real. And I truly think art is just reality being funneled through our mind and expelled, like emotions being expelled out. That's how, like, we're constantly seeing and experiencing things that come in, and art is what we do. Like we're like a machine that, receives reality and creates art from it. And that, like, I don't need a God, like, if that exists, if art exists. And this book, When Breath Becomes Air, I feel like that was a reminder of that. Like, it's a story about this guy facing something impossible, living in a very clinical world, and him finding beauty in all of it through art and through storytelling.
What does he kind of end up saying about how he viewed death as he approached it? Like, how did he feel about it? Was he scared of it? Did he find a way to not be scared of it?
I don't remember exactly. Like, I honestly, I've read it twice, and both times it destroyed me. Actually, last time I read it was like less than 2 years ago. But I can't believe that he wasn't scared. I think he was always scared. He was also facing that decision. He had a wife, and they always wanted to start a family, and they had to face a decision of if they still wanted to start a family. It's also one of those things where, like, I think you're like me, Jonathan, where like we dive into books looking for answers and leave with more questions. It's like you're asking me these questions. It's like, oh, what he was facing death. Were there any lessons or conclusions that he arrived in? And me looking at the book is, I don't know, because the book didn't give me any answers. It just made me ask different questions. That's the main thing. It doesn't give you answers. It asks different questions. It gives you different perspectives.
I think that even if he did give answers, we wouldn't really understand them.
No, and it's yeah.
Like in the way that, like, someone who is like my parents' age, in their 60s can tell me about the reality of, how it feels and what it's like to have that many memories. And I can say intellectually, like, yeah, I can, I can track that, but I don't get it, in the same way that, like, if I were to talk to someone your age and be like, oh, here's what it's like to be in your mid 30s, you could intellectually understand it, but you wouldn't really feel it, and I think that's the same with like facing death. I mean, the truth is we're all facing death, obviously, but to have kind of a number put on it is something that just completely changes the way that you view the world. And I don't think any of us know how we would react if we were to get that news, I
don't know about you. It's you think, I don't know about you. Death is something I think about a lot. It's always like in the back corner of my mind. And often, late at night, when I try to go to sleep, I start thinking about it and how I would react to the news. And it's like, sometimes I'd like to think that I'd be all stoic and wise and poetic about it. But I probably will not. It's and whatever way you react to it, I think it's fine. It's part of the human experience. It's. I mean, let me share with you one of the biggest things that I don't know if it was this book. I think it was just the journey in general. How my view of death changed, and this is what gives me. This is like what me, Sam, gives me peace when it comes to that. I used to see life, not just death, birth and death and life, as there's nothing, and then you become a sentient being for a little bit, and then it ends and you're back to nothing, right? That's how I thought of it. Now, and again, I don't think it was a single book or anything that made me think this. It was just like the collective reading a bunch of books that made me arrive at this conclusion. Now I think is like, life was happening before I was born. Before before I became a sentient, there was life. There was for hundreds of years and things happening and people falling in love and species being birthed and extinguished, all the things. And then all that magic that was happening before I was born decided to like put itself together and form me. I don't, whatever. I like, again, is there a God? Is there no God? I don't know. But that happened.
You're here.
Yeah. I'm here. I exist. That's the only thing I know. The universe decided that I was going to exist. And it's a gift, This wasn't a guarantee. Most people that could have been hypothetically born didn't born, It's like anyone could have sex with anyone in the street right now and just create a new human. Creating a new human could have, there's billions and billions of people that could exist that don't. But I got to exist. The universe decided, Ishmael from Italia, he gets to exist. It's a gift. That's something I truly remind myself every day. Like every day I wake up and I look at, like right now I'm looking at the sky, which what a blessing that I just get to look at the sky, because it's not a guarantee. It's a gift, the fact that I can look at the sky and at the clouds. And then when my time comes, I don't see it as an end anymore, because it's my end, but it's not the end. The atoms that came together to create Sam will just dissipate and return the gift to the world. And some of them maybe will become another person, and some of them will become, like, truly when I die, and I don't think this will be able to happen because I think it's illegal, but if it were up to me, I would just want to be buried in the ground, no casket, no nothing, and become food for the worms. Truly, because that's me returning the gift of my existence to the world. Like, it's like, I don't want my body to be preserved or anything. I want to return who I was and who I am to the world, because the world gave me this gift of life, and now it's my time to return it. And it's not going to end. It's going to end for me, I think, but it's not going to end for the world around me, Not only is it not going to end, it's going to thrive a little bit more because I'm giving it back,
I do think that's illegal in at least in the United States. You can be cremated though and have your ashes sprinkled.
No, that doesn't feel. Truth be told, I don't care. I will be dead.
It's not going to make a difference to you. So.
It's not going to make a difference. It's like my poetic self kind of wants that, but truly, whatever happens, I genuinely don't care.
Yeah.
Just tell me, like before I die, tell me, like, oh yeah, Sam, we're totally gonna be doing
for
this.
sure. Yeah, we're totally gonna do that. Yeah. I mean, look, I've heard caskets are very expensive, so
exactly. Saving money. There you go.
But as death is not the ending. The time we have coming to a close is not really the ending. I mean, it's the ending of this episode, but I was really just trying to make a fun segue. But before we go, I forgot to tee this up in the beginning, as I sometimes do, but I'm going to send you a book as a little, gift and participation trophy, I guess.
It's a book that you think I would like, right?
A book that I think you'll like. And the book that I'm going to send you, maybe you've read it before, but is Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. You've not read it? Perfect.
No, what's it about?
So it's about this guy named Raskolnikov. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. He also goes by like 4 different names, as people in Russian novels do. But he commits a crime kind of out of passion. Well, no, not out of passion, out of like kind of necessity. Like he needs money. And then he has to live with the consequence. And so he is like dealing with the moral repercussions and the legal repercussions, because there's an inspector who's kind of on his case and is coming after him. And so it has so many just like fascinating philosophical arguments and discussions, which I think is right up your alley.
It's so up my alley.
Also, it was written in Russian, so you'll probably be reading it in translation. So I think that unless, I don't know, maybe you also you speak fake Russian. Maybe you're
Ishmael does, but I don't.
Ishmael from
Italia.
Yeah,
fluent in Russian.
But no, I think you'll enjoy it. So
hell yeah, that's super sweet. I'm so excited now.
For sure. Yeah. No, I kind of screwed this up where normally I like get people's addresses before and mail it so that it gets there in time. That didn't happen this week, but I'm still going to send you the book. So
you're in Italy. I get it. You're in my hometown.
I'm in, I'm in Ishmael. I'm in the land of Ishmael.
The land of Ishmael. But that's super sweet, Jonathan.
Of course. No, thank you for being here. And what do you have to plug?
Nothing. Who cares? Live your life. Go watch a good movie. This week, go watch a good movie.
Wow.
That's my plug.
Okay. Sam is plugging cinema and the small joys of life.
Amen.
Well, Sam, thank you so much for being here. And to everyone watching and listening, thank you for watching and listening. And as always, keep reading.